County, where a jury has reached a verdict just about an hour ago in the trial of Caysen Allison. We know a lot of you have been following this very closely. Allison was accused of fatally stabbing Joe Ramirez at Belton High School back in 2022. After several hours of deliberation, the jury found Allison not guilty of murder in the death of Ramirez, but guilty of criminally negligent homicide. News 10's Isabella Quintanilla is joining us now live from outside the Bell County Justice Center, where she has been following this trial since last week. Isabella, what can you tell us?
Yeah, that's right, Julie. It has been a long couple of days with the jurors deliberating for nearly 11 hours in total, and many people anxiously awaited the verdict. And as you can imagine, emotions were extremely high as they waited. Even before the jury came in, the entire courtroom was tense, with people on both sides of the court looking both nervous and already getting emotional. As the deputy read the verdict to the defense, there were gasps of shock and relief from both sides. And when walking out, the anger and frustration among Joe Ramirez's family and friends was clear, with one person throwing a water bottle against a wall, another screaming as they walked out of the building. We did hear from Allison's defense attorney, Zachary Boyd, who says this was a hard case, but that they're relieved by the outcome.
This case has been accompanied with threats against Caysen Allison, against Caysen Allison's family, against the defense team. You felt that tension in the courtroom. We have continually requested people to keep an eye out, people to investigate, and I'm just thankful that the Bell County Sheriff's Office has taken it so seriously and taken everyone's safety seriously. Caysen's family, the juries.
Allison has been released under his bond conditions, which will stay in place until his sentencing hearing on June 16th. Now, depending on what Judge Falconer decides, Allison could face 6 months to 2 years in a state jail. Reporting live in Belton, Isabella Quintanilla, KWTX News 10.
When it comes to the so-called justice system in America, the hypocrisy is so thick you could cut it with a knife. Or better yet, bring that knife to a school event and still walk away with a slap on the wrist. Let's talk about it. Caysen Allison walks into a high school carrying a weapon, a knife, something he chose to bring. He follows another student, Joe Ramirez Jr., into a bathroom, confronts him, and ends his life. And what does the court system, the great defender of justice, do? They drop the murder charge. They call it criminally negligent homicide, a lesser charge. 2 years max, a fine, a pat on the back. In the court, the public, silent, shrugging. No pearl clutching over why a teenager brought a deadly weapon into a school. No endless media narratives calling him a thug, a monster, or a premeditated murderer. No politicians foaming at the mouth demanding accountability. No cries for Joe Ramirez justice from the people who claim to care about law and order. Now contrast that with Carmelo Anthony. Another teenager, another death. But this time, Carmelo, a young black teenager, gets called everything but a child of God before he even gets his day in court. He's immediately branded as a murderer. No one wants to hear about whether he feared for his life. No one wants to entertain the idea that maybe, just maybe, he felt threatened enough to defend himself. Instead, they scream he brought a knife to a track meet. It must have been premeditated. Lock him up forever. The bond was set so high his family could barely breathe. And when the bond was reduced, the outrage poured out like bile from a rotting wound. Where was that outrage for Caysen Allison? Where was the righteous anger for Joe Ramirez Jr.'s family? I'll tell you exactly where it was. Nowhere to be found. Because the justice system in this country isn't about what happened. It's about who it happened to and who did it. If you're young and white, you get benefit of the doubt. You get to make mistakes. You get a future. If you're young and black, you get the worst version of your story told before you even open your mouth. You get your life decided by strangers who already believe you don't belong. This isn't justice. It's apartheid with legal paperwork. So next time America wants to lecture anybody about fairness or equality under the law, save it. Because the smell of hypocrisy is choking and some of us refuse to pretend we don't smell it anymore.
The people are sick of this shit. We the people are tired of the lies. We the people want answers. We the people are pissed off.
Criminally negligent homicide is all he's been convicted of. He's facing 6 months till a maximum of 2 years in prison for unaliving his classmate after stabbing him to death in a bathroom. Now, I brought you guys this case a couple of weeks ago of Caysen Allison because I felt like it bared so much similarities to the Carmelo Anthony case. And both of these cases are in Texas. Both of these cases involve teens, and both of these cases involve knives where people are saying that they were acting in self-defense and feared for their lives. And I don't hear any outrage about this. I don't know if you guys are hearing, but yesterday, Caysen Allison, who is the white teen pictured here, okay, he went to his school with a knife and he unalived his classmate, who is this guy, Joe Ramirez. They're both 17 at the time. This happened back in 2022, just to give you guys a recap, and then we'll talk about the verdict, okay? Back in 2022. Now, the difference between Caysen Allison's case and Carmelo Anthony's case is that Caysen Allison actually knew Joe Ramirez, okay? They had ongoing issues and had agreed to fight. Okay, they agreed that on this particular day, they were going to show up to the school and they were going to get it over with because they had been going back and forth for a little while now over a girl, right? According to the mom, it was over a girl. But multiple people testified they saw Snapchat messages, group chat messages, that these two agreed they were going to fight. Now, on the day that all of this happened, Joe Ramirez went into the restroom with the group of his friends. Caysen Allison came later with a group of his friends. And it is being reported that Joe Ramirez threw the first punch, okay? That is when Caysen Allison took out a knife and stabbed Joe Ramirez multiple times, okay? Remember, with Carmelo, he only stabbed him once and then he ran. Caysen stabbed Joe Ramirez over 5 times. And they say there is video of Joe Ramirez coming out of the restroom and collapsing in the school hallway after he exited that restroom. Caysen Allison ran home. He was arrested and charged with murder, just like Carmelo Anthony was charged, right? And he was saying that he was acting in self-defense. His bond was set at $1 million. It was dropped down even lower than Carmelo Anthony's bail was dropped down, right? Because his was dropped down to, I think, 150 or 175. It was somewhere in that 100,000 range. So he's been out for almost 3 years, okay? And so the verdict came back yesterday, and he was acquitted of that murder charge. They said they found him guilty, okay, of criminally negligent homicide. And the jury believed that he was acting in self-defense and fear for his life, even though they had several people who testified and said that Caysen Allison had threatened Joe Ramirez on multiple occasions, even though they had Snapchat and group chat messages to prove that Caysen Allison knew that on that day he was going to fight Joe Ramirez, and he still brought a knife. So only he knew that he brought that knife. Joe Ramirez had no idea. And they still found him guilty of criminally negligent homicide. So he's only facing up to 2 years for doing not anything similar to what Carmelo Anthony did, because I feel like his was more egregious. His was premeditated, in my opinion, right? He knew that he was going to fight Joe. He knew Joe. He had threatened Joe on multiple occasions. And he had a substance issue. But he still was found guilty on the very lesser charge. So they allowed him to go home. After they came down with the verdict, he's still allowed to go home until his sentencing, right? And I don't know if that's because he's out on bail. I don't know the logistics and all of that. But very interesting. So I'm really looking forward to see how this Carmelo Anthony case plays out.
A Bell County jury found Caysen Allison guilty of criminally negligent homicide. Allison also faced charges of murder and manslaughter as well, but was acquitted on those charges. 6 News reporter Sydney Walker was in the courthouse for the entire trial. She breaks down what today's verdict means.
We're ecstatic in some ways, but it wasn't the complete verdict we were looking for.
After around 12 hours of deliberation, the jury found Caysen Allison guilty of criminally negligent homicide.
It's about failing to perceive a substantial and unjustifiable risk that his actions would cause the death.
This comes after over 2 weeks of a trial, including photo, video, and audio evidence and testimony from more than 20 witnesses.
The jury, by returning a verdict of criminally negligent homicide, has told us they didn't buy the state's argument that Caysen acted with intent to kill or even act with reckless disregard for life in that moment.
The state charged Allison with murder as well as manslaughter and criminal negligence. Multiple witnesses testified that Allison had threatened Ramirez before, as well as a Snapchat audio recording and text messages to prove ill intent. The defense worked to pick apart Belton PD's investigation, establish Ramirez as a violent person, and above all, argue self-defense.
Of a young man facing a perceived threat of serious bodily injury or death who was trapped in a small, confined, inescapable place.
When the jury reached a verdict, people piled into the courtroom, anxiously awaiting, some even already crying. Boyd acknowledged the tragedy of this case.
No.
So a lot of people think that the Caysen Allison case has no similarities with the Carmelo Anthony case, and I find that to be very odd. They have a lot in common. Are they the exact same case? Absolutely not. There are not two cases that's going to be exactly the same. There's always going to be different factors in each case, but to say they don't have anything in common puzzles me. I'm not sure why we don't remember the Venn diagram. It is a thing. It did. At least it existed when I went to school. I know they're not teaching cursive in schools anymore, but did they stop teaching about the Venn diagram where things overlap and they have commonalities where they're similar? So there are always going to be differences, but there are some similarities in the case, and it definitely is a case that an attorney would look into based on what the actual similarities are in that middle part. They would actually look at this case to kind of get some case study information, because you always want to have, a full arsenal when you go to court. So they wouldn't exclude this case. But Caysen Allison was found guilty. He was found guilty on a lesser charge. The original charge was, of course, that big M charge, but they did find him guilty of a lesser charge. That lesser charge is criminally negligent homicide, so he was found guilty of the lesser charge in his case. They did take about 10 days to complete his full trial, and then the jury, of course, came back with that decision. Now, his hearing to determine, his actual punishment for what he was found guilty of will be on June 16th. He is facing 6 months to 2 years in prison, and in addition to a $10,000 fine. But he did start with that big M. They said, no, we're going to find you guilty of this. And then he will be waiting to see what his term is that he will be getting for the sentence. So there are similarities. I did go ahead and do the good old Venn diagram for you guys so you can see the similarities and definitely the differences. And that is not all of them. There are definitely some that are, additional in that good old middle part. And there are definitely a lot of differences that they are going to have, because there's no way that every single case is going to be exactly, copy paste. It's not. Unfortunately, it's not. It can't be copy and paste. That's not the life we live. It's not. Thank goodness. But there are things that are similar. And when people who talk about cases all the time, this is where we start and we say there are some similarities in this case. Now, does this mean that the verdict will come out the same? Absolutely not. There can be two completely different verdicts. The Carmelo Anthony case has not even went to be in front of a grand jury yet. So there definitely is not this is how it will end up. It is just a possibility because of some of the similarities. That is it, and that is all.
Okay, y'all, it's my lunch break. I'm walking out the door from work. Let's get into this news. So, remember I told y'all about Caysen Allison? I'm going to go ahead and put the picture up there. Caysen Allison was a student that stabbed another student in the school bathroom. And I brought that case up because I wanted to make sure Carmelo was going to be treated fairly. Now, I told y'all his trial started like 2 weeks ago. And It's finished already. Yep. He was found not guilty for murder, but he was found guilty for criminal negligent homicide, which means he did not intend to unalive that person. And the sentence for that is 6 months to 2 years max. They said he was scared and reacting to violence against him. And his sentencing is going to be June 16th at 9 a.m. Now, I brought this up simply because y'all say Carmelo can't get away with what he did, but Caysen Allison did. And I know Carmelo is not the right color, but Caysen Allison is the right color. So what I'm saying is the same sentence he just got, the same thing, the same grace they just showed him, they need to be showing Carmelo that same grace whenever his trial starts, because Caysen Allison did the same thing. He was being quote unquote bullied. He was defending himself. He had a knife at school. Same situation. I don't care what y'all say.
It's really crazy. Everyone wants to talk about the Carmelo Anthony and Austin McCaff situation, but no one wants to talk about this. When this guy murdered him and he literally stabbed him multiple times, and guess what? He's found not guilty because they called it self-defense. Where is the outrage? Where's the outrage? Why is no one talking about this? Caysen Allison literally said, "Don't stab me or I'm going to stab you." Now, do you know this is kind of similar to what Carmelo said to Austin McCaff? He warned Austin. And this is basically the same situation with Carmelo Anthony and Metcalf. Now Carmelo Anthony's house arrest. And now they're going to look at this like, was this self-defense? Did he really defend himself? That's what law's going to look at this. I don't believe what the police reports are saying. All we know is that Austin touched Carmelo and grabbed his back. That's what Hunter said. His interview, his own twin brother said, Austin grabbed Carmelo's back. And they were saying Carmelo was pushed. He was jumped. I don't know. All we know is Carmelo's backpack was grabbed and Austin put his hands on Carmelo or he was jumped. We don't know what actually happened. But either way, man, this really proves, man, no matter what race and color you are, it may be unnecessary force. Depends what actually happened. Keep your hands and feet to yourself. That's what y'all got to say, man. I don't care what race you are, and I don't care he got away with it because it's white privilege. I don't care. I don't know if it's white privilege. At the end of the day, keep your hands and feet to yourself. Simple as that.
Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Whenever you are watching this video, this is the last and final update of the Caysen Allison and Jose Ramirez trial. I did not post the updates as it was going along because I wanted to wait for the final verdict. So here's the last couple of days of the trial and the final verdict. New evidence was submitted and jurors heard testimony from 4 new witnesses in the 5th day of the Caysen Allison murder trial in Bell County. Caysen is on trial for the deadly on-campus stabbing of Jose Ramirez in Belton High School in 2012. Witnesses on April 21st included Chris Biddle, Caysen's friend, who was in the bathroom that day of the stabbing, as well as Jose Ramirez's ex-girlfriend and 2 investigators on the case. Testimony began with Chris, who was cross-examined over text messages between him and Caysen leading up to the stabbing. Previous testimony indicated there was a heated argument between Caysen and Jose at a prom night party. For those text messages, Caysen sent a text to Chris after the party asking, "Bro, bring me a gun." Chris also recalled what happened that day, explaining that while there was a plan for Caysen and Jose to fight, they did not plan to fight in school and were supposed to bump into Jose and his friends in the school restroom. He says they tried to leave after using the restroom, but that Jose and his 4 friends wouldn't let them. That's when, according to Chris, Jose punched Caysen, and when Chris tried to step in, he was hit by Josh Rios. A action seen in a cell phone video of the fight that was replayed for the jury. We then heard from Madison Barnes, Jose's ex-girlfriend and a close friend of Caysen. During her testimony, Madison told the jury that Caysen made threats against Jose to her before the stabbing, sharing that he told Madison that Caysen wanted Jose on life support, wanted to stomp his head in, wanted his jaw dangling from his face, and wanted him in the hospital. That is so freaking nasty. The jury was then asked to leave before Robert Princeton, one of the investigators on the case, was called to the stand. Robert shared that he got a search warrant for Caysen's Snapchat. Defense and prosecutors went back and forth for a while on the authenticity of the voice message that had been submitted as evidence, which Judge Faulkner accepted after leaving to review. When the jury returned, they played the recording, which was Caysen explaining everything to an unknown person. In the message, Caysen claims that Jose and his friends pulled out a gun at the party after they got into the argument. Caysen further claimed Jose and his friends texted him and were talking about jumping him. In the recording, Caysen is heard saying, "We finna catch them tomorrow." Caysen ended the recording by saying, "I'm gonna send him to the hospital." Finally, the jury heard from Detective Robert Gatewood, who was one of the officers that went to Caysen's house that day after they had gotten a call about a possible suspect. When they arrived, Caysen's mom led them inside to the bathroom where Caysen was heard by officers talking to someone on the phone saying, "I did something at school," and asking them to come and take him to Waco. This audio recording was played to the jury, who also saw photos from inside the house, including a picture of Caysen's white shoes splattered in blood. When he exited the bathroom, Caysen was then taken into custody, cooperating with officers and telling them, "I was just trying to protect myself." During his interview, Detective Gateway says Caysen described the knife used to stab Jose to detectives, telling them where to find it after he had thrown in onto the side of the road from his car. Man, he admitted right there he was trying to kill Jose. Wow. Testimony continues in the Caysen Allison murder trial as Texas man accused of fatally stabbing classmate in 2022. On Tuesday, Temple police officer Keith Esquivel testified about finding the weapon used to kill the victim, Jose Luis Joe Ramirez Jr., 18. Prosecutors said Caysen, then 18, stabbed Jose multiple times during a fight involving several students on May 18, 2022, at Belton High School in Belton. Keith detailed how he found the knife on the side of a single-lane road, hidden behind the tree lane. Following the fatal altercation, images shown in court revealed blood on the knife. Keith told the court that Caysen ultimately cooperated in the investigation and that it could have been difficult to locate the weapon without him. Lead Detective Gene Cole from the Belton Police Department also took the stand and testified that Caysen admitted he had took the knife from his stepdad's closet that morning, anticipating a confrontation with Jose. Gene added that Caysen could not remember how many times he stabbed Jose and noted that Caysen appeared calm until he saw the knife, at which point he became visibly sick. The incident involved Caysen, Jose, and 4 other boys inside the bathroom on that morning in question. Jose had previously confronted Caysen during and after prom party after accusing Caysen of behaving aggressively toward a friend's date. The pair agreed to fight at a later time, but bumped into each other in the bathroom beforehand. Jose allegedly said that if they were going to fight, they should go ahead and fight in the bathroom, according to witness testimony. Witness said the bathroom brawl was not planned and that Caysen said he did not want to fight before Jose threw a punch at him. Caysen then stabbed Jose multiple times, including in the chest, arms, and buttocks. Some witnesses described Jose as someone known to fight, while other witnesses said he didn't know that of the victim. One witness said Caysen told her he wanted Jose on life support, while another witness said Caysen wasn't known to carry weapons and had the knife for self-defense only. If I found guilty, Caysen could face life behind bars. Man, this is really crazy, you guys. Thursday morning, the state called more witnesses to the stand, including the victim's brother, Josh Rios, in the murder trial of Caysen Allison. He's on trial for stabbing death of classmate Jose Ramirez. The state put pressure on Joshua, questioning why he left out information on how the fight started during his first encounter with police. Joshua explained he was going through a lot of emotions while he was waiting for his brother at the hospital to get out of surgery. I was going through a lot of emotions. My brother was in the hospital going into surgery. My brother was stabbed and killed. And the defense continued to ask about left out information. Joshua told the court anything that was asked they obtained. Before Joshua testified, Belton Police Captain Richard Spurgeon took the stand. He spoke with Joshua at the hospital after the stabbing. He said he didn't feel like Joshua, quote, was very forthcoming in the initial interview. After objections from the state, the jury was shown Captain Spurgeon's body camera footage from inside the school the morning of May 3rd, 2022, and from the initial questioning, which Joshua later that day. The captain's body cam footage from his time at the hospital captured Joshua's statement to investigators. In it, he said the fight between Caysen and Jose was over a girl, but he wasn't sure about much more. He also did not list all the names of the boys in the bathroom because he says he wasn't aware of everyone in there. In the body camera footage at the school, an officer can be heard on the phone saying that Caysen is 18 and that the police had to let him know his attorney was at the police station, but they didn't have to put a rush on it. The defense point out that the school lockdown was released at 11:45 while Caysen Allison didn't receive medical care until 12 p.m. During cross-examination, the state asked Joshua how long he had been at the hospital before that interview with Spurgeon. Joshua told the jury he had been there 3 to 4 hours and, quote, my brother's life was on my mind. The last witness to take the stand was Caysen Allison's mother, Denise Allison. The defense asked her about what happened when she arrived home to see Caysen. She explained she took 2 photos of Caysen. Those photos show blood on his face and busted lip. She said she took those photos because she wanted to make sure it was documented. The defense rested and the state rested with no further questions. Friday morning, court is expected to continue with the judge expected to finalize the charges against 21-year-old Caysen. A jury returned a guilty verdict for criminal negligent homicide Tuesday in the trial of former Belton High School student Caysen Allison. It came after more than 12 hours of deliberations. Caysen was accused of stabbing Jose Ramirez to death in a bathroom of Belton High School in 2022. He faces up to 6 months and 2 years in a state jail facility, according to Allison's defense attorney. Those in attendance were informed that the jury had returned a verdict at 10:45 a.m. Shortly after people piled into the courtroom, anxious waiting, Jose Ramirez's mother walked in crying. People on both sides were reaching for tissues had their heads down and were rocking back and forth. Judge Wade Faulkner entered at 10:50 a.m. He acknowledged the high emotions of this case and reminded the members of the gallery the rules of the court, asking everyone to maintain silence, peace, and respect, and stay seated regardless of what was read. The elected foreperson from the jury had handed the written verdict to the deputy, who then passed the verdict to Judge Faulkner, who read off the final decision that the jury had found Caysen not guilty of murder or manslaughter, but guilty of criminal negligent homicide. There was a lot of tears, joy, and even anger following the verdict. Judge Faulkner then told Caysen that the probation office would be working on a pre-sentence report in this case. Boyd then asked Judge Faulkner if Caysen's ankle monitor could be removed. The state objected to this, saying he was not eligible based on the verdict. They then asked the judge to find Caysen's bond insignificant. Judge Faulkner declined the request to remove Caysen's ankle monitor and deemed the bonds sufficient. The sentencing phase will begin June 16 at 9 a.m. Caysen chose to have his sentence come from Judge Faulkner instead of the jury. Jose's sister Olivia Ramirez posted on Facebook that her brother did not receive justice. You deserve so much more. The post reads, so much more life and so much more justice. Another relative of Jose, Victoria Ramirez, also posted a response to the verdict on Facebook. You can read that there. In the press conference after the verdict, Boyd said criminal negligent homicide means the jury found Caysen did not intend to kill Jose Ramirez. They saw a young man scared, injured, reacting in a sudden, violent encounter, others initiated. Over the course of the trial, the state tried to make a case that Caysen could not have acted in self-defense. They pointed to a number of factors that support the theory, including an alleged threat he made on Snapchat to Jose, his actions when he walked in the bathroom and did not choose to leave, and his discarding the knife after it happened. The jury had to consider whether or not the state proved beyond a reasonable doubt that Caysen did not act in self-defense, and they woefully failed to do so. Let's not forget the shadow case by... Okay. Sorry, guys. Caysen at the arrest, the minimization of Caysen Allison's rights under Miranda at the beginning of his interrogation. Caysen's defense team focused on inconsistencies in the police investigation. They said law enforcement said they looked at less than an hour of the video. They simply chose not to do a complete, thorough, and comprehensive investigation. The defense also pointed to the calm that someone in Jose's group threatened Caysen with a weapon before the fight in the bathroom, which they argued supported the self-defense argument. Despite a lesser charge, Boyd said they are happy ends for anyone. This was a hard case, and nobody should ever outlive their child, Boyd said. No human being should have their child die in a violent way, and I'm so sorry for their loss. And the Allison family is sorry for the loss because there is no good outcome of this. Caysen will remain out on bond while he awaits sentencing. In a statement to 6 News, a spokesperson of the City of Belton said the following in response to the verdict. The City of Belton respects the outcome of the judicial process and the role of the jury reaching a verdict. Our police department remains committed to conducting thorough professional investigations in this case. No, I think that he should at least got manslaughter. I think so. He should have been found guilty because this was premeditated. And he should be in jail. He shouldn't be out in the free world. But this is what the justice system is for, people of a certain skin color, so they got the privilege. And this is what he got because of the way he looks. But, I just hope Caysen will have a great life. And I feel bad for Jose because he didn't get the justice he deserved. He even got effed over in death.
On April 29, 2025, a Bell County, Texas jury reached a verdict in the case of Caysen Allison, who was on trial for the 2022 fatal stabbing of fellow student Jose Luis Ramirez Jr. at Belton High School. Here are the key details. The verdict: Allison was found not guilty of murder, but was convicted of criminally negligent homicide, a lesser charge indicating he caused Ramirez's death through a gross of deviation from reasonable care without intent to kill. The incident details. The stabbing occurred on May 3rd, 2022 during a confrontation in a school bathroom. The altercation reportedly stemmed from a prior dispute at a prom party. Evidence presented. Video footage showed Ramirez initiating the fight by punching Allison, who then retaliated with a knife. Allison later confessed to the stabbing, claiming self-defense and disclosed the weapon's location to police. Sentencing. Allison faces a sentence ranging from 6 months to 2 years in a state jail facility and a possible fine up to $10,000. He remains free on bond pending sentencing, scheduled for June 19th.
I don't know if y'all been keeping up with this case, Caysen Allison and Joe Ramirez, but the verdict is back. And the only reason I followed this because this is very similar to the Carmelo Anthony case trial, and is both in Texas. Well, he was only charged with criminal negligence homicide. He's facing anywhere from 6 months to 2 years and up to a $10,000 penalty. And you know, in Texas, house arrest counts for time served. I want to say he's been on house arrest for almost 3 years. He stabbed Joe Ramirez multiple times, one in the chest, one in the heart, and one in the buttocks. And before this even happened, once they were in the bathroom, he seen people taking off their backpacks, and he told Joe Ramirez, hey, if you approach me, I'm going to stab you. And he did. What's interesting, during this trial, 2 of his friends gave testimony. One stated that Caysen requested him to bring a pew-pew, while his other friend stated that Caysen stated that he wanted to put Joe Ramirez on life support. He wanted to put him on life support and see his jaw dangling from his face. We'll see if Carmelo Anthony is treated the same way they treated Caysen Allison.